My name is Anna Godlewska and I represent Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'd like to thank you, Konrad and David, for the opportunity to be here and to speak and to invite my colleagues from not only 11-Bit Studios, which is one of the leading gaming companies in Poland, but also they represent a foundation, in Polish Indie Games Foundation. Let me briefly make a brief introduction to what they will be presenting. Poland today is entering a new phase of international visibility. The question is no longer whether Poland matters economically or strategically, but how it wants to translate that position into cultural and intellectual influence. As a medium power, Poland today occupies a stronger international position than ever before and has become one of the European Union's key economic actors. However, economic success does not guarantee soft power or international recognition. And many countries grow economically without developing a distinct voice abroad. But what makes Poland unique today is that a new layer of influence is emerging alongside economic growth. Cultural production, digital creativity, and a more self-confident urban identity. This was achieved through significant investment in cultural infrastructure, in museums, concert halls, libraries, and public institutions across the country. Cities like Warsaw, Kraków, Katowice, and Poznań expanded their cultural capacity through ambitious urban projects and public investment. The artistic potential had long existed in Poland. What was often missing was the infrastructure capable of presenting it internationally. Warsaw has become one of the most dynamic urban centers in Central Europe and increasingly attracts international talent through academia, culture, business, and innovation. Equally important is the role of civil society. One of Poland's less discussed strengths internationally is its culture of grassroots organization and civic initiative. Many successful social and educational projects emerged not through central planning, but through local networks and independent actors. And this creates a society that remains adaptive, creative, and resilient. The success of Poland's creative sectors is closely connected to this broader culture of civic initiative and institutional adaptability. More than 800 game development studios now operate in Poland, supported by universities, technology, companies, and specialized creative services. What emerged is not simply a successful export sector, but a mature ecosystem linking technology, storytelling, and education. And companies such as 11-Bit Studios and CD Projekt brought global visibility to Polish game development. Games such as The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, This War of Mine, and Frostpunk gained international recognition because they introduced themes uncommon in mainstream entertainment. Themes like moral ambiguity, social responsibility, crisis, and ethical limits of political systems. Polish games are successful because they reflect a distinctly Central European sensitivity, skepticism toward simplistic narratives, and an awareness of social and historical complexity. This is an important form of soft power because it works indirectly. Millions of people encounter Polish culture today not through traditional institutions, but through digital experiences, storytelling, and design. For a medium power such as Poland, this creates an opportunity to build influence through creativity and intellectual property rather than scale alone. This is also why the cultural dimension of foreign policy matters increasingly for countries like Poland. We are placing greater emphasis on long-term cultural partnerships and international exchange, including initiatives such as Polish-French Cultural Season that is planned for 2027. Within this broader strategy, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has identified game dev, music and literature as priority areas for promoting Poland abroad. In developing this approach, Poland increasingly relies on international perception studies, including analysis prepared by Brand Finance, which help us better understand how Poland is seen globally and where cultural diplomacy can be a part of national brand strategy and strengthen the country's international visibility and reputation. Poland already possesses many of the assets associated with influential middle powers. The challenge for us today is therefore not visibility alone. It is coherence, connecting economic success, cultural production, public diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, into a coherent and credible international narrative to become not only economically significant, but also culturally influential. And this is all for the introduction, and let me give the floor to our guests, Paweł and Damian. Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much to Anna and the Polish MFA for the invitation to be here. Good afternoon to each and every one of you. We're going to have a presentation about how we kind of combine Polish video games, Polish creative industries in the promotion of Poland. The presentation is pretty short for the topic, I believe, but we're going to do our best to give you, a sum up of what we've done over the years, how it was done, and why we think it's important, and how we used what Poland has best to offer, which we do believe is video games, to promote the image of Poland as a very modern, a very creative country in the 21st century. Now, my name is Damian Jaśkowski, and I am the East Asia coordinator at the Polish Indie Games Foundation. I am also the expert PR manager for East Asia at 11-Bit Studios. I've spent a huge chunk of my life in Asia. I was employed at the Polish Institute in Beijing, where I was responsible, among others, for video game promotion programs. So we have this so I do have this background in public diplomacy. And today I'm in business. I'm at 11-Bit Studios doing a lot of stuff which actually is in line with what we've did before. And our co-host for today will be Paweł Miechowski.
Nice to meet you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paweł Miechowski. I work at 11-Bit Studios, which is one of the major leading companies in game production and publishing in Poland since its beginning in 2010. I work as an advisor to the Indie Games Poland Foundation as well, and I am a co-founder of Kultura Interaktywna Foundation, which works to promote games in education and education in games and all around. So let me begin, maybe. Who's the clicker, Damian? Are you the one? To give you some numbers about the Polish industry that picture how actually big it is comparing to the other powerhouses in games industry globally, and how big the industry is in general. You might be surprised that games tend to be perceived as a, say, digital toy, while in reality they grew up to be a mature form of storytelling a long time ago. And as an industry, as a business, they overtook film industry and other forms of entertainment a few years ago, which simply means it's a huge global multi-billion business being a field of culture at the same time. So, Damian,
yes. First of all, I do know that this hall, and like all the people in this hall, are quite unusual in terms of what you know about country brands, place brands, brands generally. So I could ask you what you think is the most recognizable brand in Poland, And I'm sure you would come up with many different ideas for that. Point is that it's different when you work in the industry, and it's different when you don't work in the industry of public diplomacy and around. Now, if you ask a person on the street, what do they know about Poland? And I can, vouch for that, because as I've been living in China, I had many situations where I was talking to people on the street and I was telling them that I'm from Poland. What do you think would be the thing that they would know about Poland? Some of them, yes. But if you ask a person in their 20s, no. Sorry? Not really, no, because there's only żabkas in Poland. That's quite important, because if you think about the most valuable Polish brands, actually, like the ones that Polish people would, for example, mention, there's Allegro, there's Żabka, which are InPost, which are brands based in Poland. Ain't nobody outside of Poland know about those, unless you've been to Poland and you actually went to Żabka, which kind of works like 7-Eleven in Asia. Ain't nobody know about that outside of Asia. Now, the most recognizable brand is actually CD Projekt Red, a company from Poland, about 1,000 people today, but it started off pretty small, which is responsible for The Witcher 3. They've created The Witcher 3 game, Cyberpunk 2077, and they are the most recognizable brand in Poland. And The Witcher and Cyberpunk as well, even though ain't that many people know that The Witcher was originally a book. They usually play the game, not everybody goes towards the book. The game is more famous than the book itself. And as for Cyberpunk 2077, it's actually based on an American tabletop game, role-playing game. So again, it was kind of like, the game made it farther than the tabletop game itself. Now, in order to kind of know what we're dealing with, I'm going to give the floor to Paweł, who is going to tell you more about the scope of the Polish game dev sector, because once we know that, we can see how impactful it actually is.
All right, so maybe, Damian, already let's jump to the first. Yeah, so take a look at the hubs. This is the report done by Dr. Jakub Marszałkowski from Technical University in Poznań. However, researched on many available data all around the world, including British report, French report, Swedish, etc. Hubs, when it comes to games industry, by the numbers of employed people. Warsaw is actually bigger than London. The big dot next to London is Oxford Guildford, which is a big hub on itself. I'm going to refer to it a little bit later. But surprisingly, the biggest hub in Europe when it comes to employed people is actually Warsaw. So there's at least one industry that we can be very proud of, that we're actually the leading hub. And if we go further, that shows the comparison of Warsaw to entire Romania. The workforce in Warsaw is bigger than in the entire games industry in Romania. The number of game studios is higher than in entire Romania. To give you a comparison, Warsaw is 1.8 million people, while the metropole of Warsaw is 3.5, say. Romania is a 20 million population. The revenue is almost twice as high as in Romania, and these are the numbers for 2025. So Warsaw alone stands as a power comparing that could be compared to an entire country. And if we go forward, we have quite an important, well, you might be proud here because UK is on the first place, but here, these are the numbers from different European countries showing where the industry is the biggest as a number of employed people. So UK, then France and Poland. We're not exactly able to tell how many people work in France because their data is not sufficient. Well, their report is simply older than the reports from other countries. This data is gathered all together by European Game Developers Federation, wherever it is possible. Then Germany, Spain, Sweden. Well, you know, Germany is a leading country across many industries, be it cars, be it different industrial divisions. Yet, in games, we are bigger than Germany, and there are still some other numbers to prove that. And if we go forward, Damian, these are the numbers. If you're not familiar, Steam, it's actually American platform, is the biggest distribution platform of video games on the planet, working sort of even as a monopoly, because this differs from report to report, but they hold around 90%, just one single company, 90% of digital distribution globally, which means that if you want to sell a game on internet, 9 out of 10 units is sold through Steam. Hence, the data that we can actually see are actually very actual data to tell something about the world. So, and these are the numbers showing, so in the games there are something like wish lists. Wish list is a mechanics that simply works that if you want a product, you click it as something that you will later wish to buy. Of course, you don't have to do that, but the platform informs you wherever there's a discount, the premiere, anything that happens with a game. So you follow it as a product. So as you can see, the most popular games are from USA, then Canada, Japan, Sweden, Germany, United Kingdom, Poland, France, Korea, and China. These 10 powerhouses dominate absolutely the industry globally. And in our industry, there are no boundaries. Physical distribution is still a thing, however, a very niche one, because we simply distribute through internet. Whenever there's an internet, there we can sell our games, which means that we are also a perfect exporter. The average number for a Polish company working in games industry is that 97% of our games are sold globally and only 3% in Poland, which means that out of these 97, the games are being sold in United States, China, United Kingdom, France, Germany, and then the rest of the countries. These first are the biggest markets on the planet, or the biggest communities of gamers that actually buy games. And on this list, Poland is a number 7. I don't think there's any other industry in which we could place us that high on a list. So I think we can go forward, Damian, and here you go.
Yes. Now, it's very important that there is a sort of partnership between different institutions, companies, the country, and the private sector in order to make things happen. Now, the fact that Poland is considered by many to be a powerhouse in terms of gaming is not made just by one side. So it's very important that we have, like, you know, the public, we have the business, and the people who kind of make it, like, they push the whole thing forward. Now, the partnership is based on dialogue and openness, and I think that is something that both we and Paweł have experienced very much on both sides of the spectrum. Because on the one hand, you have to have the business people who have a good product, right? If you don't have good games, you're not going to go promoting games and your country through games abroad in any way. So you have to have the business first. And then on top of that, you can build up the whole story of why the games are so successful, and you can build up on the image of the country as a gaming powerhouse. Now, we do have to have in mind that both sides of that partnership have different ideas, different expectations, and different needs. So in terms of business, generally said, what business needs is funds to operate, it needs people to operate, and it needs like the markets where it can sell its goods, right? Now, what it needs from public institutions, what it can get from public institutions, is, for example, participation in game shows abroad. That is something that we've been doing for the past 10 years at least, and it's something very fruitful for both sides of the partnership. Meetups. So, for example, you have different events where you invite people from abroad and you get to meet with different companies from abroad. Study tours. So we invite, as public institutions, we invite people to come to Poland, or we invite people from Poland to go to different countries to experience how those countries work in terms of their communities, their markets, and their industries. Now, of course, in terms of that, there's also the more business part, and here I would like Paweł to add a couple of words about that, because like creating the business environment is also very important, as much as it does not immediately translate to public image, but I will leave that to Paweł.
Yeah, as far as I remember, the first time I was approached by the governmental institutions 20 years ago in 2006 at the Polish Games Arena, which is the biggest B2C games event in our country in October every year. So this shows how actually long ago I could actually start to try to lobby the needs of our industry, the creators. And throughout the years, different programs have been started. Some are already finished, some new ones are being forged. But the industry, through communication with we as a private sector, through communication with the public sector, we're able to first thing, start direct investment programs into games. So, for instance, the Institute for Creative Industries under the Ministry of Culture is investing into prototyping, into creation of prototypes of games, which is super important in our business, to prototype a product first, and it's an ongoing program. There have been different ones. Now we're trying to forge new ones with the current administration, and even, I think, most importantly, a tax relief. This is very surprising when people hear it all around the world, but in Poland, games companies pay as much as 5% of income tax. So this is a very low level, as you hear, up to the level of the costs that we spent on the investment first. So practically, we're getting back the money that we invested in the form of this tax relief, and we can reinvest further. For companies as ours or CD Projekt, these are actually big numbers, and I don't think I have seen anything such mechanism in the world. It's called IP Box. It was introduced by under the president Andrzej Duda, so the former one. And it's actually for any company that registers intellectual property in the Republic of Poland. And since games industry is doing that, this is a very effective tax relief for us.
Exactly. Now, of course, you have the things that business needs, that business wants. On the other hand, you have the things that business has to offer. So, for example, business can offer education, because business can help educate new generations of video game developers over time in hand with public institutions. So you're going to have, for example, game design programs at universities. You're going to have esports classes at high schools. All of that is done hand in hand with business, because only then it makes sense, right? You have cooperation between those institutions. So, for example, the fact that we are here today is a sort of cooperation between the public sector and the private sector, that we can speak about this and that we can share our experiences. And you have the recognizability, and that's very important because that's the thing that basically business has, but is the most important part of it. Now, in terms of recognizability, if you think of the biggest brands of video games, those are brands which are recognized all around the world. You can go wherever you want, you say The Witcher, and everybody's gonna go, oh yeah, I've heard about it, or I played it. Like, games like those have been played by millions, tens of millions of players all around the world. Even more probably because there's like still piracy in certain parts of the world. But you have the recognizability of those brands, which we are happy to use for the perpetuation of the image of Poland as a creative industry hub. And again, we get something in return. Now, the very important part of this is that in Poland, games are considered to be part of culture. It is, of course, a business product. We are companies, we are making money, and we have to make a revenue in order to be able to sustain our existence. But at the same time, games are not what they used to be 50 years ago or like, you know, further than that. If you think of games today, they are a product of culture. You're going to have people who are going to say that, you know, oh, games are for children, or best not even for children because it's a waste of time. But for us personally, I think it's kind of like hearing, oh, don't read books. Books are for stupid people. I've read 50 Shades of Grey, it's not for kids. Well, yeah, but there's not one book in the world and there's not one game in the world. There are games which are works of art, and that is something that we are very proud of. And of course, that is something that perpetuates a certain image of games as well, and of the companies that create them, and of the industry as a whole. But at the same time, we do have to have in mind that it is a sort of cooperation between the public sector and the private sector, because as much as we benefit from this sort of view on games, it is not something that we will be doing on our own. So there you have the public sector, and that's very important. What you see here is it's part public. So it's not something that the public sector can do on its own. It has to be done in cooperation with the business sector. But at the same time, it has to be hand in hand in order to give the best effects. And following, Paweł will speak more about the social role of games and how they can be viewed as works of art. The floor is yours.
Well, just let me go back for a moment, a few years back, that I remember also the moment where the games were considered as IT, because the stereotype was that games are created by programmers. That is completely false image, because games are created by programmers with the cooperation with designers, musicians, writers, painters, quite often psychologists, and combining knowledge from those many fields gives the output, which is a game, which is a work of culture. It uses tropes and themes, often grass-rooted in one's culture, as it is, at least in our case, of Polish video games. And actually, I was the one working on a process of making our game, which is called This War of Mine, released in 2014, being part of formally high school curriculum in Poland. Because this game became such a phenomenon all around the world, like a cultural and educational phenomenon, that at some point Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki announced that the game's value is, how to say, worth being considered as a work of culture being used in our system of education. It was announced in 2020, and the process formally ended up in 2022, when the game was actually became a part formally of high school curriculum in Poland, and is actually used in schools. And we, as a private sector, we decided that this value of this game is worth sharing with students in Poland, and it's something that we don't even need to benefit from. So you should know that the game is available free for all the educational institutions in Poland, and can be downloaded on proper educational government website. And going further, you might not know about this perception, but this game, like I said, released 12 years ago in 2014. In 2016, this was the part of Beazley Designs of the Year, one of the nominees, and presented at the exhibition in the London Design Museum, a Polish game. So I think it's it speaks for itself, a proof that games are not only a part of culture, but constitute a solid element of soft power. Because if we go even further, we can see London Imperial War Museum. The game was a part of War Games exhibition. I think it was 2019 or maybe a little bit earlier. I can't remember exactly. Anyhow, our game was already part of the exhibition at one of the most influential and I would say prestigious museum in the world. I have been there. I'm a huge history freak, so I would say this is a great museum, and we've been there. And if we go even further, Damian, same game, but it happens to many other games as well, but this one is a very good example. This War of Mine, again, Never Alone exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. It's a permanent exhibition, so it goes to the wherever warehouse they have and goes back. So as long as Museum of Modern Art exists, our game will be part of what they keep as the exhibition going back and forward wherever exhibitions are presented. Of course, our role in it was we were helping to make this happen, but we are not the ones who initiate those exhibitions. It's those museums that do that. So they have seen how culturally influential our game was and decided to include it in the exhibition. So the thing is, you may see modern, let's keep the lingo, modern products, video games all around the world. You might not always know that they are Polish, but in fact, quite often they are. Of course, the more we talk about it, the better, but this soft power is working. Well, you can see it in the end in action. And now to you, Damian.
Yes, and in order to give you a better scope of how we use this image of video games to promote the image of Poland as a video game powerhouse, we're going to do a short case study of the Polish Games Creative Poland project, which was part of the projects that I did at the Polish Institute in Beijing. And it still continued years afterwards. It started in 2016, 17. And over the years, the project has had many different phases to it and has been organized by the Polish Institute in Beijing in cooperation with many different Polish companies, in cooperation with the Polish Indie Games Foundation and many other Polish institutions. Now, it started off basically as a social media campaign. The Institute started writing about games on Chinese social media, on Weibo to be exact, and it was very, very popular. It became quite popular with the very first post, as it turned out that it had 1 million views, thousands of comments, and it was an obvious sign that this trend to kind of include games in the work of the Institute was a very good decision. So that's how it started, and over the years there were many different phases to that. So, for example, we had campaigns about indie Polish games, so like independent, small Polish studios that do games, and we kind of helped them to introduce their games to the Chinese audiences through a series of posts in social media, which was done also in collaboration with Chinese partners, Chinese gaming media, who are sending the posts further, who are also reposting that on their own channels, and it was very, very successful. But again, apart from that, we've been also doing posts like on a regular basis, but we've also been doing posts to kind of go outside of the field of games. So for example, we had a campaign which was about places that you can find in games. So for example, you play The Witcher, you see certain places in The Witcher, and those places actually exist. They exist in Poland. There are actual real places that you can go to, that you can take a photo. And as it turns out, it's very, very interesting both to the audiences, because those posts are very, very popular with the audiences, but also with the actual institutions, because we've been working with the institutions, like, so for example, they've sent us photos from museums, etc., to help promote those places. Now, we've been organizing a series of gaming events. So for example, you have here photos from video game shows. Sometimes those video game shows were organized, the attendance on those video game shows was organized by the institute itself. For example, with the Digital Dreamers presentation of video games, of the history of Polish video games, which was organized in Wuhan, a very famous city, I think.
Some things went viral.
Some things went viral, yeah. And I'm sure it was connected to the presentation. So we went there, and actually it was very fun because, like, we have been invited to attend the event. We did not have to spend a dime on the whole structure, the build-up, anything, because Polish games are so famous in China that the organizers said that they would like to have Polish games on site for the players to experience themselves. And in China, actually, there is this name for Poland, which is Yoshidagwo, which means a gaming powerhouse, a gaming power. Now, we've also did like talks on different game shows and different conferences in China to kind of promote the image of Poland. And it was always very, very interesting because rarely you had government institutions going to those conferences. As I went there and as my colleagues went there, it was always a surprise to the people that, like, you know, actually the public sector is interested in games, which normally they're not. And then we're there and we're speaking about games, we're actually players and we can share experiences. It was quite a fun thing to do. Now, we've also had something which is called a Polish party. It has many different names in many different regions. So like a party for local game developers to meet up with Polish game developers as we go to those countries to attend different game shows. We've also had study tours. And again, you can see photos from those study tours. We've had Polish game developers go to China, meet with Chinese companies in their offices, talk about business, but also share experiences in terms of video games and the approach towards video games, and especially the approach of the government institutions towards video games and how they view them. Because in terms of those, Poland is definitely like way ahead of their, way ahead of different countries. Now, we've also had study tours to Poland, so we had video game publishers, video game developers, and video game media going to Poland to see themselves like the sort of environment that those games are created in. We had market reports, which were again very popular. I do believe that the Game Developers Guide to the Chinese Market had millions of views and comments on TikTok, on Bilibili and different platforms. It was very, very popular. And again, it was very surprising that the Polish government, the Polish public sector, and the Polish business sector are going hand in hand in promoting games. And we also did something which was pretty cool because, again, games are not just products. So, of course, there is the business perspective, but there is also the cultural perspective. And that perspective is like, I think maybe perhaps one of the most important ones for the public sector, definitely. That is something that the private sector can support in many different terms. But of course, it does not translate immediately to sales. So again, that's something that we can do hand in hand, but it's not something that many companies would do on their own. So the Polish Games Creative Poland, the concert, which was like the biggest event we've done, I think, up until today. One of the most successful ones as well. So a concert at the Oriental Pearl. Yeah, it's not very visible, don't worry. We have a short video of that. A very beautiful stage in Shanghai. But basically we had a orchestra, so like actual musicians who are playing Chopin, who are playing like Mozart, and they were playing video game music for 2 hours in one of the most prestigious halls in Shanghai. The tickets went like, pretty immediately. Everybody wanted to be there, and you have concerts of like, tens of thousands of people in many different places all around the world, as well going to listen to video game music. Now, that's basically what we have for you today. A lot of knowledge to take in. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, I don't think we have the time, unless maybe for one question. No, we don't, sorry. So if you have questions, you can reach out to us. Those are our emails. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.